the past question. I mean, it's maybe the same one in a sense from two different perspectives, right? So, what are the most successful? I believe this is intended as initiatives, right? To drive or incentive actually. What are the most successful incentive to drive linked adoption that you saw in the past, right? And also, maybe same question more from a personal point of view. What was your wow moment where you think you saw that linked data really works, right? So I don't know what you want to say for ladies first, maybe.
Thank you so much. And thank you for this panel. My experience working in the clinical environment, hospital regions in Spain, and also connected with Europe, I think my wow moment is this mentality change that I live in this health organization when they understand that health data in a proper way with full semantic, full context is really useful, and how medical doctors, nurses, pharmacists change the way that they work around the data. They start using and supporting just free text, and they say, no, yeah, I just have time for write free text. And then when we explain, no, you need to structure, apply semantic, we will give you new tools. And then they see what this provide them and their patients in their normal task, predictions, management, research. They really change, and then they request from the informatics team more tools and more forms, more semantic tools, and it is for me really, really inspiring. And in my area, in this historical moment, now we are living one very special moment that the three bigger standards in the health informatics, OpenAir, FHIR, and OMOP CDM, the Odyssey community, are working together, are preparing how this standard have to work together in an agnostic way in this data platform. For me, now it's a really important moment because finally we don't see this standard like football team. We see this like tools that have to be combined in the data platforms.
Anybody else want to share their experience?
Yes, well, for me, I started, well, as a computer scientist, I started to work on linked data when it was not yet called linked data. It was exactly when I started my PhD was appearance of semantic web. And when I saw the vision, I was sold immediately, and I thought, well, it has to work. So it was more than 20 years ago. So this was the wow moment in this sense, and a personal one. And I think for the rest, of course, there were many. It took a lot of time, decades to convert people to use it more and more. But the biggest, I think, change was actually when Google started to use knowledge graphs in the search. Then you see, okay, we made it. It's like then it's everybody's using it. It doesn't matter which domain and which area. So it's and for many years they were saying no, and we don't need it, and traditional information retrieval works very well. But now you cannot do anything without knowledge graph. And then everybody followed, on the industry. And life sciences were, of course, already way ahead of Google, but like this.
Well, as I documented in my talk, we were at the very beginning actually asking the scientific questions. So first thing I remember as a success when we were actually able to, I would say, formulate a complicated query, and we get via the federated query the answer. So it was about some, I think, a metabolome, chemical molecule, and then we asked the REA for the reaction. Then we asked UniProt what is the protein which is actually doing that reaction, and then we ask for the inhibitor of that protein. So that complicated query when actually provided the answer. So we were actually kind of really in wow effect. So it was a kind of a success. We saw it on our own eyes.
Yeah, my wow moment was when I was developing Togo genome. So I didn't believe that works, and the response time was quite good enough. So the JBrowse embedded in a Togo genome is also Sparkle backended. So you can scroll every chromosomes, and the Sparkle query issued every time, and it is really responsible. So yeah, that was my wow moment, I guess.
So now we move to the present, and in the present we have two quite distinct questions, threads, right? So one is, what inspired you most of this conference? What do you want? What would you like to see from this community? Yeah, even formulated that as what would make you happy, if you want. Yeah.
No, I am new in this community. Of course, thank you to invite me. I learned so much things, also new things for me. I am not super expert in this semantic web format, and this I am more in the specific clinical area, working with very specific standard for healthcare and very specific of the domain. And now this community opened my mind, show me new perspectives, the powerful of the ontologies to model also not just information, also the knowledge, and then combine knowledge and information in also this platform. And I want to continue, of course, involved in this community, next conference, continue learning, and also try that we can do also these technologies very advanced from my side, like ontology, etc., how they can be translated to the real clinical practice to build real tools for the doctors and professional, patient, etc.
Yeah, for me it was very interesting to see, well, a mixture of people. Well, some have life science background and techie, and some technical people, well, move into life science applications, which I think is great. And this is what we need to have more of this to get things working, because having well developed languages and tools and well technology by itself, it's a human factor is the king of to get it working in practice. And this is the event I think is very important, and I'm in this bridging this gap, and I'm also happy to be here also for this reason. And
So I noticed that there is a quite big range of expertise which were provided here, and also there is two parts, whereas that the human health or life sciences, I think there is still a gap between that two fields, because I don't see that the direct, I would say, connection between the life science and the healthcare, and in terms of the, I would say, the molecule basis of the certain kind of diseases and treatment and so on, and similar things. At the same time, I just realized today and during the last lecture that there is a huge amount of the data and also the knowledge. And I can imagine that there is in a power of one person to actually go through all of that range of the expertise, and even be able to formulate the proper question, starting from, I would say, life science and go to the healthcare. So I would see in the future that there will be probably the role for AI, which can actually probably supply that kind of the range where we can ask I would say, the questions which are meaningful and actually bring us a new knowledge. So I think that this is the auditorium and this is the environment which will actually do the direction in the next years.
So for me, this conference is something like a supportive. So when we are developing RDF semantic web things in Japan, we feel very, very lonely. Coming to this conference or organizing a hackathon, we can meet the international community which have share the same problems, and we are developing the same technology together. So that is a value of this conference for us. And I don't think large language model remove the need, but we need to supply the data we have and to make them correct answers. And I didn't mention in the past, but the most successful incentive was a budget. So in Japan, we have a database development program, and in that program, it is asked to provide RDF data when you develop a new database. So that was kind of like a successful, I guess. Yep.
Thank you. So now that we discover we are a support group, maybe we are going to organize a conference in circles so we can share our stories. Yeah. So and then there is a question some of you already touched on, right? Which is a question that needs to be there about say, LLMs and new, machine learning based model, whether they will remove the need for semantic. Now we don't know whether these questions are actually automatically generated or not. So that may make you think a bit, yeah. But but does anybody want to touch a bit again on this aspect of will large language model made semantic not useful anymore?
Well, I am not an expert in large language model and semantic web data, so I will translate this question to my comfort area. And then the rest of the table, I am sure that they can answer this question proper way. But for example, when people ask me if in the clinical area NLP processing, natural language processing, or even AI will remove the need to have a common semantic or a common information model, my answer always is no. We need to build always this common framework of semantic, transversal to all the service, all the product, all the application, and then of course AI services for process the text, for create new mapping automatically. Of course, they will help, but always we need to have behind everything one common semantic modeling. And I think we cannot separate this semantic layer from the services.
Yes, the answer, of course, no. Same answer. I touched it also a little bit in my keynote, and of course, it's so some people view it that even symbolic technologies like semantic web, it will save LLMs from many things which we don't like about them, how untransparent they are, how hallucinating they are, how you cannot reference to what they take information from where and how eco-unfriendly they are, and all these disadvantages actually knowledge graphs they don't have, and there's a lot of research going on in computer science now to combine these two approaches to get the best solutions possible. Yeah, so they will coexist, I think, and will work together ideally for a better world.
Yeah. I think I asked Andrea what time scale you had on mind. I mean, when the large language model is removing the need, in a decade or? Because I think this is a question of
this
time.
Maybe it was ChatGPT writing this question, so that's where we are. Maybe it's a Troy horse. Who knows?
I don't think that I think in a few years ahead of us there will be replacement or remover of the semantic web. But I see the future within I would say, the symbiosis with both of that, I would say, approaches. The thing is that the language model is probably not the best option for the AI. I don't want to go into detail, but I think there are some alternatives for the large language model. And I suppose that this part of the scientific community coming from the semantic web can actually introduce the new way of the model for AI, which then would go into the symbiosis with now we call the large language model and the semantic web. So I see it both in the future converging to the, I would say, the new product.
Yeah, I think I already answered, but maybe I can add some comments. So, yeah, every year we have millions of papers published in PubMed and other literature, and new technologies are now developed. So those data need to be integrated for your new hypothesis making. So I don't think those are not for large language models, but large language model can help scientists to realize what is already known and what is not. So supplying all the data we have continuously, or if we can make a generic model, then maybe we can use that, but no one knows. So it is a cutting edge cutting edge technology, and we cannot expect what is going on in 5 years. So, but still, the proper scientific data need to be maintained by researchers, and that is a responsibility of us, I think.
Thanks. Then we have the future. The future is always more open, right? So we have more questions. And we have a few questions here. One is about what has been touched about this different, part of the healthcare ecosystem, if you want, healthcare, bioinformatics. We also touch on nutrition and food, right? We will see them integrated when and if, right? Another question is about semantics getting more and more mature. I don't know exactly what this means by consumer device usage, but the question is, what is the extra mile to run for the large-scale adoption, right? Then you have also a question about how do we create incentive to achieve large-scale data sharing also across different kinds of institutions, private and companies. What are the domains that are still need to be modeled and specified more, right? As well as what is the next big thing in semantics, yeah? So now, if you can go over this and maybe pick 2, 3, question of choice, right? And answer them, and maybe this can be a bit more interactive, and then even, from the public, you can contribute to this question or pose new questions, right?
I will try to answer the first one, and maybe other if I have time. The first one, I think we are doing this actually now with the data spaces strategy, also in the European Union, in the different countries. We have different domains. Sometimes they are very different. We have the traditional clinical domain. Now we are also with the bioinformatic and genomic data spaces. Also nutrition and food, weather. This is what we call also One Health project, that we try to combine all the different domains that apply to the health of the individuals. And I think we are preparing this kind of data spaces. Sometimes these data spaces are a specific domain. It is not a big problem if we have one domain for clinical data, other for genomic, other for environment and data, weather data, etc. If we have the tools to federate, integrate the data in the same tools and platforms. So I think every single domain has sometimes different standards, but it is not a big, it is not a discussion about format or the structure. It is a discussion about semantic. If we work in the different data spaces of different domains with the same semantic framework, then one external tool can make one query to the 3, 4, 5 different data spaces and take all the patients that have this diagnosis, this genomic variant, and also live in one area where the temperature or the weather is always like this. So I think we are doing this. It will not be immediately, but I think this initiative of European Health Data Spaces and others, One Health Project, are doing this. And for example, to answer also related with this, which domain I think we have most need of modeling, at least in the health domain. I think this new domain that appear now. We are now in the era of the precision medicine. The genomic is something that in bioinformatics we are very good, but then we translate this to the clinical practice, to the genomic variant report. We are also now working so much in the hospital to model this new domain. Also, patient-reported outcomes observation, like prompts. These new domains that are very important. I think this need a review of the models of the semantic and for provide this data to these new health data spaces and clinical data spaces.
I will take first and third. Well, first, I think the cross-domain integration does happen. Even when there are no good data sets, people often do it manually. It just takes a lot of time to solve if it's a really important question and we want to know the answer. Now, of course, it improves because indeed more and more data sets, which you even sometimes don't need. Okay, great if you have a data space at some point of time, but if we don't, people just take data sets and start to integrate if they want to combine, I don't know, health and food, for example, and solve something in this direction. So this happens, and I hope it will also happen more and more. And then we also learn how to integrate it in an efficient manner. And for the third question about adoption and data sharing, across institutions. Well, what I saw, and well, I was doing a few projects on data sharing. Of course, industries which have very, very clear use cases, they do go and do really dedicate on these efforts. If you don't have a very clear use case, and it also comes with how we generate data sets or who will annotate all this data. If you don't have a clear use case, of course, it will not be your priority to solve this problem. And everything is time and money. And this is the only, well, most important criteria which count there. But what is important is that so unless they get pressure to do it, also it can be another way to, well, force. For example, we need to be GDPR compliance. Then okay, this is the tool. But if there is no pressure and no like immediate business need to solve it, then the third way is to have actually more important to have more simply people who are convinced that semantic technologies are useful and actually will being able to implement them, because at some point of time you need to renew your solutions, infrastructures, how you operate with data, and yeah, and the next guy who will be sitting on the job will know how to semantics works and simply will not ask and install everything, all the semantic products, and this will be the state of the art situation. Yeah. So we need basically more experts in this area, I think.
Yeah, so I remember seeing some definition of bioinformatics like a conceptualized molecular biology. So I really have a hard time to think what concept is the connecting the healthcare, bioinformatics, nutrition, and food. So I don't see the way how it could be easily integrated now. If they will be in the future, I really don't know. But I think we are trying to actually do that. You mean, even if we would like to go and start with the molecular biology and actually extended it in some way, so I suppose that we need to define that interfaces and very carefully define that, I would say, barriers or probably the borders between the different, I would say, discipline. And my own experience goes to the question where if I see what it's extra mile to run to reach large scale adoption of semantic web, the first thing is that most of the people who would like to use it, they don't have the PhD in semantic. So they are really having a hard time to formulate the query for the, I would say, Sparkle. So they really need someone to help them probably explain the concept of the whole semantic web. And also, as I said, this is something which is going cross-discipline. I don't know how many researchers you know, they are easily flowing across the disciplines, having a really large volume of knowledge from the, I would say, the molecular biology, genomics, proteomics, even cell biology and other omics methods. So I suppose that this is something that I don't see as easily be overcoming. And the thing is that I don't see that, I would say, Renaissance type of the researcher anymore, because there are so many specialization which actually prevent you to have a kind of the larger picture over the disciplines like in the life sciences. So probably that would be the role for AI, giving us the rope for connection between different disciplines, because I don't see the situation like is 1995, and Kiyoshi actually described it, how they constructed the key EGG. And this was actually followed by the effort when World Wide Web was created. So I think the people still, I think, were able to actually follow that stream. Now, if you look on that, I would say, curriculum of the bioinformatics students, so you see they are very precisely distributed over certain kind of discipline. But what is missing is actually that kind of the general overview of the, I would say, the life science or even the cell biology, or for the doctors, for the molecule background of the diseases and stuff like that. So I would say this is the something which in the future should be solved. So training, and also from that semantic community, kind of the rope for the researchers, how to use it and how we can actually utilize that. And last but not least, I don't know, probably I'm the very ignorant. I don't see example of real achievement of that. I would say the research approach. So I would like to see the more best results, answers on the very complicated questions, which are actually bringing new knowledge for the larger amount of people.
Yeah, I related to the second one. Once you started to use knowledge graphs or semantic web technologies over relational databases, and actually there are great applications like Ruby on Rails, which has object and relation mapping. And you can use model, view, and controller architecture to make new database very, very easy. And but at the same time, once you get familiar with the RDS Sparkle, then you will not feel to go back in the past because the flexibility and your database is accessible through HTTP, and you have a flexibility in Sparkle query. But at the same time, I still want to have something similar to that. So what is a graph model, and what is a relation mapping to that? So object and a graph model mapping. And if we have a great, easy middleware to develop new database based on the knowledge graph, and which supports CRUD, create, read, and update and read. And so I cannot easily recommend someone starting new database. Let's use RDS Sparkle because the lack of the, how to say, matured middleware is not so much available. But still, there is a lot of potential. Otherwise, many people are still creating new APIs that extract information from RDB and design very, very weird JSON object, and there are version 1 and version 2, version 3 of the JSON version. So that can be easily resolved by exposing your data in a Sparkle endpoint. And so we need to develop nice middleware. At the same time, we need to find an easier way to model the data. So every time, for example, if you are asked to create new database which deal with special transcriptomics, what kind of ontology you need? And we are also struggling with which URI prefix to use and how to explain the new data model. So it is like an XML and JSON. So we should invent easier way and a nicer toolkit. So the original concept of the semantic web itself is great, but we need something to make it easier. That is my feeling.
Thanks. Any other reflections from anybody? Yeah.
Hey, hello, it's me again from upstairs. So hearing everybody talk about knowledge graphs, etc., from institutions having knowledge graphs, I heard and I've seen only a small amount of people looking at a more decentralized approach. And I'm trying to maybe pick your brain a bit about it, if that's okay. So from my perspective, if we want to go, for example, for an holistic approach, as asked in the future question, is that you need knowledge of the person. Who are they? What do they do? And how do they see the world? And what works on them and what doesn't? But we're looking at it from an institutional perspective every time. We're trying to know more from an institutional perspective than from the person themselves. They have, they live their lives, they they do their thing. So wouldn't it be better if we try to work both on institutional knowledge graphs as personal ones, starting to maybe bring these knowledges together? So what's your perspective?
We have troubles imagining personal knowledge graph. I think I'm not that important to have one, but I don't know about others. If that was your question. But decentralized, of course, it's a lot of decentralization is important. Yeah, some things definitely will never be open and never be shared. And but at least it's important to know that they exist, and you can go and talk to a person or to whoever manages it, and or to interact in some way. This I see very often while in Wageningen, and also people produce data or until, well, they will not even show it to anybody before they publish a paper. That's the best case scenario.
Could I maybe explain a bit about what I mean about that? So we go through our lives, we do academic studies or whatever, we learn things. That means that we grab knowledge from somewhere and we put it in our brains. That's, if you look at RDF, you can do the same, right? You can grab pieces of nodes, put them in your own knowledge graph. So we go to the hospital because we're ill, something happens, a diagnosis will be made, and we take that back. So wouldn't it be better to have a personal approach on these knowledge graphs, give it back to the people, and every time they interact with somebody, they could, knowledge graph interact with one another. So that's a bit of my perspective on it, and yeah, maybe it's more for the drinks.
So if I can respond to that. So I completely missing the time in your construct, because I think this is dynamic stuff. You cannot just have the one graphs, which is actually capturing the way how you're thinking. So it's an evolution of it. So I don't know how the evolution could be actually grabbed by the construct like that. I think the time is a really important parameter of it. Otherwise, I actually get your concept. I don't think I think it's feasible to think about it, but if you don't take a time into account, so I don't think it'd be.
It's like a digital twin. Okay, it's not a helpful comment, but this is what people mean with it.
Sorry, there was a presentation already about personal healthcare records. I mean, I'm hoping that everybody here is super healthy and is in good state. But if you are diabetic, or there are some kids that they have some kind of illness, they need to be traced almost daily. So physicians will encourage that the person records blood pressure, or even, some devices that they are taking track of insulin. And this is in their personal record, but however, it's useful information for the clinician in order to see peaks. In the case of kids, sometimes they need to also to take their measurements, and also it's important the food intake. When is taking food, what is taking, and if this is affecting somehow or interacted in some ways. So I will argue fearsome that there is a strong motivation for personal health records. And unfortunately, for some people, there is no option. They know that the best care that they can receive, it also depends on how much they involve themselves in order to have these records. And when it's a small kid, it's also part of a responsibility in a way, yes, as a parent. So I will argue that is happening, not perhaps subjectively about what films you like or what kind of things you enjoy the most. It's more practical, if you see my point. You see, I mean, very basic things. How much do you walk daily? How much time you are outdoors? How much, do you see what I mean? Depending on the condition, these kind of things that we don't give that much thought, it becomes important. So just, I don't know, another perspective. There was a paper about personal health records, so I'm sure there are some people here that are really experts, but just to give you an answer, or a potential answer.
Anybody else want to chime in the discussion? And by the way, even open air in the end is very hospital-centric, right? Although one could imagine a more personal view, right?
Yes, actually, this personal health record perspective, now at least in Spain, I think also in Europe, we are adopting these kind of systems for specific domains that the patient need to report outside of the hospital, because in the hospital sometimes the time is very limited with the specialized, and then you can, maybe you, if you are the medical doctor, you can not ask everything that you want, and then it's easier for the medical doctor to review first one report that the patient did at home, and then you check, oh, the patient is worried about she or he is losing so much weight, for example, or she's not happy when she or he see himself in the mirror or something. These kind of prompts for chronic conditions, cancer, etc., are not very useful, and they are changing also the way that medical doctors and the hospital interact with the patient in the appointment. So I think for these kind of domains, personal health records are very useful. It is not knowledge; it is information. That this information can turn into knowledge with more process and new research about these kind of new domains. But of course, it's very useful domain also, and maybe not for all the domains. Maybe the prescription that the patient is taking, it's better that the hospital provide this information, because have to be something that we can check that it is the correct prescription list. But other domains more that is more with the patient, less with the hospital, are very nice to have this kind of personal health record system.
Is it on this thread, the open air standard? How does it match? How does it cover like patient-reported outcomes and this kind of data?
Yes, OpenAir, actually you can model what you need with OpenAir with this perspective of archetypes, template, reference model. It is OpenAir is more oriented to universal clinical concepts, so you can measure or you can model, I don't know, memory status, walking status, and then you can, with this universal concept, you can create this template for create specific questionnaires, and questionnaires that can be exist, questionnaires for neurological diseases, for COVID-19. So OpenAir allows to model questionnaires, prompts observation, create forms, and then you can persist, and then of course you can also transform to other standards. Then you need to transform this OpenAir template of one specific EQM5 questionnaire, then you need to transform to 5 rows in our OMOP-CDM table. You can make this ETL process. So important thing in this OpenAir perspective is how the clinical experts, the domain expert, nurse, medical doctors, for one specific condition, sit in the table and then model which concept they need, which questionnaire they need. You don't need to model full questionnaire in OpenAir. You can just take a specific concept that you want and you create your specific model. And then it can be reused in many projects for research, for value-based healthcare, ICHOM, etc. So it is, I think now the new prompts application, at least in the hospital that I am working, they want to build this on the top of OpenAir and not create a new silo application to a patient have to introduce data and then one new database to integrate, and this no efficient process.
Other questions, reflections, ideas?
So one of the cool features of this conference, I think, is that it's connected with hackathon. And I mean, I participated once, like a couple of years ago, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. So, so to use this opportunity that we have the hackathon, my question is, so you have all your keynotes was from different areas, more or less, right? Not super connected, let's say. What would be like one thing you think could be developed during the hackathon or over longer time that you would like to fix or improve in the current technology stack or stack of standards applicable to your domain?
Well, you have an infrastructure for hackathon. You want to run it? I can answer for you. That's easy.
You can also open an hackathon project now.
So many useful tools. So I really took photos because we really encounter when we develop with life science, all these people. Many of these tools really make life more, easier for a life scientist. Yeah. And I also do such tools sometimes in some of the possibilities. So this is something can be interesting to produce new tools to help life sciences to make their life easier, and also other domain experts. And another thing is, of course, to find also the way for life science and healthcare people to answer more complex questions which they cannot yet answer, and they even don't know themselves they are able to answer, because the data is not annotated and yet integrated. So this kind of finding these questions and finding the data sets which actually can help to do this kind of question answering is interesting. Yeah, it's from the domain perspective, it solves challenges. So tools are for me, and this is for life science people.
Probably it's completely nonsense. So AI extracted ontologies on some fields, that would be probably one of the subjects I would like to run.
Yeah, I don't have any new ideas, but I'd like to explore the new possibilities to use the Fire RDF or what we did in the biohackathon in Japan, the Eric's hackathons, like how to deal with genome graphs in RDF or something like that. So because this is a healthcare and life science conference, so maybe we can be more focused on the medical information integration. And but I'm not so much expertise in that domain. So, and a hackathon is a great opportunity to learn and give the technology and get feedback. So I think you can coin what to try. So we are not deciding, but the community can decide what to do. So yeah.
I mean, something that we can really develop during a series of hackathons, not in one, is what we are all suffering of is the complexity of SparkQL and also the RDF representation. So RDF and SparkQL, these are very formalized languages. And what we love to query is using natural language, but natural language is too complex. So maybe we find an intermediate solution, something in between SparkQL and our English language. So maybe we can use like a simplified version of English, maybe use like within the RDF graphs have already a notion of the natural language. I mean, as you mentioned, so some identifiers, they can't be, or many identifiers in ontologies, they can't be understood by humans because they are just numbers, UUIDs or whatever. So maybe we can add a layer that is comprehensible and then can be used then to formulate queries in a natural kind of language and simplify querying. I mean, that would be amazing if we can achieve that.
Yeah, I agree. So I have two ideas, like to annotate the data models in natural language that enables large language models where to find the data to answer your question. The another approach would be to give easier APIs like a GraphQL. So the data model in GraphQL is simplified and but still captures the essential information from the complex RDF graphs. Then most of the problems can be easily resolved, I hope. And that is my two ideas, but probably there can be other ideas. And yeah, that would be a great hackathon discussion.
I give the name Sparkglish. How do you pronounce that? Sparkglish, yes.
This is a response to that comment about the natural language. Has anyone here read the culture novels of N.M. Banks? Because in those novels, there's a language called Moraine, which is invented by the super intelligent minds of the culture that's meant to be very unambiguous. So maybe that sounds like something you might want.
Also, one talking also about the hackathon ideas and this challenge that we are trying to solve now in the semantic area. We have now also one big challenge when I said before that we are trying to adopt different standards in the same data platforms. The challenge of this is that we need to also align these standards. Now, when we talk about mapping, mapping is something very simplistic, because mapping is just to say this is this, but the semantic mapping is something more complex. When we have one repository in OpenAir and we have one repository in OMOP, we will want in the future to develop an AI algorithm, for example, that can learn from OMOP CDN and then can be executed on the top of OpenAir for the healthcare purpose. So this kind of new ontology that allow us not just map a field to field, element to element. We need to something more intelligent, and that set this concept in this archetype with this semantics from SCT or whatever is the same that this field in this other data model that maybe it's not SNOMED, maybe it is ICT10. But we need this also, this kind of ontologies, this kind of expert system that help the medical informatics teams to make the mapping that the correspondence that we are doing now in one Excel file where we said it is this, it is this, it is this, but it is not advanced tool for this big challenge that we are now with these different standards.
I'd like you to look at your data and see how interoperable it already is. Because between all your talks, nutrition and food and the chemoinformatics, you both use CABI. It's in there, there's already an interoperation point. If you go from chemoinformatics to healthcare, drugs, again with CABI and drug bank, there's already connections. You have all these opportunities that is like, oh, it is already interoperable. But it's very hard to see it because you're just looking at your own tree, that you don't realize that you're in a forest with a beautiful ecosystem, and they should enjoy it.
Stand up. So let's finish with a round with a quick question. What is the next big thing in semantics? 30 seconds. What is big? What is big coming next?
In my opinion, maybe it seems like
the timeline, I don't know.
maybe it seems like a simple thing, but for me the big thing, the semantic, at least in the clinical area, is when we start to adopt information system in the hospital, in the region, that really work with the semantic in a proper way, that can consume OpenAir templates, can put on the top API based on FHIR or based on Beacon. Now we have this old system based on reports and PDF documents. When we really change this in the producer of the data, at least the technical data, the hospital, the region, then for me, even it can seem like little thing, it would be when we start to produce semantic data and then semantic metadata, and we can start to create this kind of super useful semantic networks.
Okay, let's add the flavor a bit. 1 year, 5 years, 10 years?
I think this year will be
1 year. Okay.
Yeah.
We can check next
we
year.
will have a smart system. I know more the Spain ecosystem, but I am optimistic. 1-2 years we will have this.
Okay, take note. Next year we check this one. Okay.
I think many people in semantic area, well, it's already a trend even before LLM. Before LLMs it started, that we started to combine semantics with deep learning, machine learning. So symbolic and sub-symbolic AI, neurosymbolic AI. So many people are in this trend now in the semantic web community, if you talk about developers. And then the next innovation, at some point of time, we will get proper question answering systems, which would be better than LLMs separately or knowledge graphs based systems separately. So there will be combination which mix these techniques, and I hope that some of them also will revolutionize or improve or make faster development of some of the things we struggle to get into adoption in domains where it's slow or it's difficult or is impossible. So it's
we give it 1 year.
I think prototypes are already coming, like you said, generation of ontologies. Well, I have a PhD student that generates knowledge graph, and not only me, thousands of people are doing. So prototypes are already there. They come every second, these kind of things. But systems which do something useful, maybe in 3-5 years, already crystallized solutions, and then adoption another year or two. But fast enough, I hope. Yeah.
This we don't check next year. Okay.
It's not that fast, but it's this I see happening. Yeah.
Okay. Next big thing.
I don't know.
Small thing, medium.
Okay. My question is there only one language as a tool for communication? Because I can see the as Mark suggested, there are probably some different layers of communication and different layer of languages, and probably different semantic too. So I wonder if in the future there would be probably some alternative way how we talk about what language is, or if there are some other semantic for.
We don't give a timeline for this.
I don't know.
Let's play safe.
Yeah, in a technology perspective, I'm very, how to say, excited about to know about Clever. So I would like to replace everything that is actually technically big thing for us. And in another perspective, I would like to employ AIs for my as my collaborator for my scientific research, but I don't know when it can be possible. And because the ChatGPT is great, but they don't know the details of the domain knowledge yet. So
Thanks. So thanks again, our panelists. Yeah. Now.